In a small town in New South Wales, a woman stands in her kitchen wearing the apron she wore countless times before. She's known in the community as an excellent cook and skilled worker. But behind the ordinary facade lies one of Australia's most disturbing cases. Welcome to GBRLIFE Transmissions. I'm your host, Caitlin, and you're listening to GBRLIFE of Crimes, where we explore not just what happened in crimes committed by women, but why it happened and the psychology behind them. Today, we're examining a case that changed Australia's legal history forever. A story that forces us to confront the darkest possibilities of domestic violence. Who was behind this horrific story? Katherine Knight. The year is 2000, and in the quiet town of Aberdeen, New South Wales, a crime scene would unfold that was so disturbing, many of the responding officers would require counseling. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back and understand who Katherine Knight was and what shaped her into becoming Australia's first female prisoner to be sentenced to life without parole. Born on October 24, 1955 in Tenterfield, New South Wales, Katherine Knight's early life was shaped by chaos and instability. Her mother, Barbara Rugan, had 4 sons with her first husband before beginning a relationship with Ken Knight, Katherine's father. Barbara's relationship with Ken was the product of an affair, and he was a violent alcoholic who regularly abused her. Katherine's childhood home was a battleground. She witnessed constant violence, and her mother often shared inappropriate details about her troubled relationship with Ken, exposing young Katherine to adult concepts far too early, including her mother's intimate life. The family's troubles weren't confined to their home. They were well known in their small community, and Katherine faced constant bullying. By age 11, Katherine was already showing signs of concerning behavior. She would respond to bullying with extreme violence, often getting into physical altercations at school. Teachers noted that she could switch from calm to enraged in seconds, with little apparent trigger. Her teenage years showed an escalation of these behaviors. At school, Katherine would fly into uncontrollable rages threatening both students and staff, yet paradoxically, she could be charming and helpful when she wanted to be. The dramatic personality shift would become a defining characteristic throughout her life. At 15, Katherine left school and found work as a butcher. This job would prove pivotal in her life story. She excelled at the work, quickly rising through the ranks and eventually becoming the first woman in the region to earn a full qualification in butchering. She took immense pride in her work, even hanging her knives above her head, a detail that would take on a much darker significance. These late teenage years were marked by increasing instability. Katherine would have explosive arguments with her mother, sometimes becoming physical. She moved out at 16 but struggled to maintain independence, cycling between living at home and living with friends. Her personal relationships during this time showed concerning patterns. Friends recall how Katherine would become intensely attached to people, showering them with attention one moment and erupting in rage the next. But not just any rage, jealous rage. She would often threaten self-harm if she felt abandoned, a manipulation tactic that would continue throughout her adult life. Then came her first marriage at age 19. In 1974, Katherine married David Kellett, a co-worker from becoming a butcher. The relationship moved quickly, perhaps too quickly. Their wedding night ended in violence when Katherine attacked Kellett over a perceived rejection. This incident marked the beginning of a pattern that would repeat and escalate throughout relationships. Throughout her marriage to Kellett, Katherine's behavior became increasingly erratic. She would throw knives at him during arguments. When he was away at work, she would obsessively clean their home, sometimes staying up all night to do so. Their marriage ended after she attacked him with a frying pan, fracturing his skull. Her subsequent relationships followed a similar pattern of escalating violence. With her second partner, David Saunders, she began using weapons more frequently. In one particular disturbing incident, she placed his infant on train tracks. The child was rescued, but she did harm his pet dingo pup. Then comes John Price. Their relationship began in 1994, and by all accounts, it started well, but it sounds like with her it typically does. John was a hardworking miner, well-liked in the community, and their early days together seemed promising. But Katherine's controlling behavior soon emerged. Their relationship became a cycle of breakups and reconciliations, each reunion marked by increasing tension. On February 29, 2000, John Price took out a restraining order against Katherine. He told his co-workers that if he ever failed to show up for work, she had done it. That night, he even barred Katherine from his house, and he told his children not to let her in under any circumstance. He went to bed around 11 p.m. Katherine waited until Price was asleep. She entered his home, got into his bed, and attacked him with a knife. The evidence showed Price tried to escape. There was a trail of blood that led from the bathroom to the front door, but he never made it out. Katherine harmed him at least 37 times, front and back, in what investigators describe as a frenzied attack. But what happened next showed the true extent of Katherine's calculated brutality. Using her professional skills as a butcher, she treated Price's body as if he were livestock, with a precision that investigators said could have only come from years of experience. She then displayed her handiwork from a meat hook in the living room. In a disturbing display of domesticity, Katherine proceeded to dismember her victim and began preparing what she called a dinner for the children. She prepared vegetables as side dishes, set the table with placemats bearing the names of Price's kids. She even wrote detailed notes about her intentions to serve this horrific meal. Investigators would later find parts being cooked in several pots on the stove. When Katherine was done, she took multiple showers, organized her belongings, and went to bed. The next morning, she acted as if nothing had happened. She went about her morning routine until police, alerted by Price's co-workers when he didn't show up, discovered the gruesome scene. The crime scene was so disturbing that many of the responding officers required counseling afterwards. One veteran detective said it was the worst thing he'd seen in 24 years of police work. The level of organization and methodical preparation showed this wasn't a simple crime of passion, it was a calculated act of revenge. Let's analyze the psychology behind this level of violence. Forensic psychologists point to several key factors. First, we have her borderline personality disorder traits, characterized by intense fear of abandonment, unstable relationships, explosive anger, impulsive behavior. And then there's the evidence of the antisocial personality disorder, lack of remorse, pattern of violating others' rights, failure to conform to societal norms, history of cruelty. But what makes Knight's case unique is the combination of the methodical planning with explosive rage. This crime wasn't just violent, it was ritualistic, suggesting a level of premeditation that goes beyond a simple crime of passion. Her behavior during arrest and trial provides further insight into her psychology. She claimed to have no memory of the crime, a common defense mechanism known as dissociative amnesia. However, the careful nature of her actions, sending Price's children away, waiting for him to fall asleep, arranging the crime scene, it suggests otherwise. Katherine Knight's case focuses us on several uncomfortable truths about domestic violence. First, the perpetrators can be hidden in plain sight. Second, the warning signs often escalate over time through multiple relationships. And third, that when the victims do come forward, our system needs to protect them better. The judge who sentenced her made history by making her the first woman in Australian history to receive a life sentence without the possibility of parole. He stated that her actions put her in the category of crimes so heinous that they can only be met with a life sentence. And in the United States, the death penalty would likely be in her case. Katherine Knight remains in Silverwater Women's Correctional Center, where she would spend and will spend the rest of her life. This case forces us to confront uncomfortable truths. The warning signs were there. The escalating patterns of control, the history of violence and threats that everyone hoped were empty, but they weren't. John Price did everything society tells victims to do. He confided in friends. He documented the abuse. He got a restraining order. Yet the system failed to protect him. Perhaps the most chilling is how Katherine Knight maintained her public image throughout her years of escalating violence. Too many in Aberdeen thought she was just a hard worker, a skilled butcher, a good cook. This duality, the public face and the private horror, reminds us that predators don't always have to hide in the shadows. Sometimes they hide behind ordinary facades, behind workplace competence, behind the mask of domesticity. The Katherine Knight case changed Australia forever. It led to reforms in how domestic violence cases are handled, particularly regarding restraining order violations. It sparked conversations about the need for better protective services for domestic violence victims, regardless of gender. And it served as a stark reminder that domestic violence isn't just about physical abuse. It's about patterns of control, manipulation, and escalation that, if left unchecked, can lead to unthinkable tragedy. Today, Aberdeen tries to move forward, but the shadow of Katherine Knight's crime still lingers. For the officers who worked the case, for Price's children who lost their father, for a community that discovered evil can wear a familiar face. The wounds may never fully heal. This has been GBR Life of Crimes, part of GBR Life Transmissions. I'm Caitlin, reminding you that understanding the darkness helps us appreciate the light. If you or someone you know has experienced domestic violence, please reach out for help. No one should face abuse alone, and no warning signs should ever be ignored. Join us next time as we explore another case that challenges our understanding of the criminal mind.